busiest, most urgent time. And by using that as an oath, there are other times of day that Allah uses for an oath also. He says, وَالصُّبْحِ إِذَا أَسْفَرْ وَالْفَجْرِ وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ وَالضُّحَى. These are different times of the day. Allah uses different times of the day to swear by, even وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا تَجَلَّى, right? The daytime. But specifically the use of Asr is a time that is associated with a sense of urgency. In other words, the next lesson we're learning here in this surah as we go on is, whatever Allah has to say, the time for you and me to react is not a lot of time. There's a state of emergency. We need to act quickly because the dawn of our life has set upon us. The sunset of our life is at bay. It's around the corner. So we need to act now. It's this idea of time running out, the timer ticking away. That's being captured in just the words Al-Asr. So this last benefit of this oath is a sense of urgency. And one alim, he compared, Mufti Muhammad Shafi' among others, compared the struggle of the human being that is depicted in Surat Asar to the one who is trying to sell ice. In ancient times they didn't have freezers and stuff like that, right? So the ice vendor, he doesn't have a lot of time and it's melting away. And he has to make use of these sales and get the product out to the customer in a certain time. And if that time goes away, then all of that effort is gone to waste. So he has this sense of urgency to accomplish what he needs to accomplish. The other part of the overview, inshallah, we'll talk more about the middle ayah later on, but about the last ayah, one thing for now. Commonly, the last ayah of Surat Al-Asr is understood as having 4 components. Of course, it's very easy to see that. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, number 1, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, number 2, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, number 3, and وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, number 4. 4 conditions. The first condition being those who believe, those who act righteously or do righteous deeds. The third being they enjoin to the best of their ability and to counsel one another with truth, and then also doing the same with perseverance. These are the 4 conditions that are mentioned. But one of the things we're going to learn today as part of the overview is that these 4 things are actually one thing. They seem like they are 4 things, but they are lazim wa malzoom. They are necessarily connected to each other. They are actually inseparable. And actually all of the rest is the fruit of the first. Iman. The first thing that's mentioned is Iman. And then there are 3 other things mentioned. But what we're going to learn is, if one really has Iman, then the next 3 things are naturally bound to happen. They are bound to happen. And if those things don't happen, guess what's missing? Iman. So if one wants to check if they really have Iman or not, they can check by the minimal standard of Iman set by Surah Al-Asr. What are the consequences of Iman? What happens right after Iman? عَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ تَوَاصِي بِالْحَقِّ تَوَاصِي بِالصَّبْرِ. If those things aren't happening, then there's something missing in Iman. And by the way, all of these 4 are connected in a profound way. Even if you take the second case, عَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. What is after وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ? They act righteously. They enjoin the truth. They don't keep the good to themselves. Now they're enjoining the truth, of which I'm using the cliche translation. The idea of it is to get the truth to others. Tell others to do good too. In other words, if you are truly doing good, it is impossible for you to keep it to yourself. It's impossible. A necessary consequence of that will be you will have to share it with others. That is part of goodness. And then when you do enjoin the truth to others, you will get people that respond to you, and you will get people who hate what you have to say. And when you get people who hate what you have to say, you will necessarily need to develop what? Sabr. You're going to have it. It's a necessary, these are all connected things. One leads to the other, to the other, to the other. And we'll explore more of that as we continue, inshallah ta'ala. This is actually why this surah opens up in most explicit detail these fruits of Iman that usually in the Qur'an are mentioned in 1 or 2 terms. Sometimes Allah says, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. That's enough. Because really the rest is what? Fruits of Iman. Right? So if you understand Iman properly, then the rest is understood. Sometimes He elaborates it a little more and says, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. He'll say 2 things. But in this surah, He doesn't say 2 things, He says 4 things. And if you notice, the last 2 things, tawasi bil haqq and tawasi bil sabr, are actually deeds in and of themselves. They are deeds. And so, amilu salihat is a deed, amal. And tawasi bil haqq and tawasi bil sabr are also a'mal, amalain. They're both actions too. In other words, what we're learning here is Allah highlighted the two actions. This is what I mentioned last time also. Allah is highlighting the two actions that get overlooked by people when they think about good deeds. The actions that they don't tend to think about when they think about doing good deeds are the ones that are explicitly highlighted, so we understand this is the bare minimum of good deeds that you need to accomplish. That is tawasi bil haqq and tawasi bil sabr included in the discussion. Now, I want to share with you a scenario. And I really benefited from this scenario, as my teacher Dr. Abdul Sami' in one darsi explained it. I also heard Dr. Asar Ahmed talk about it in detail. I found it very beneficial. And we're going to look at the lessons of Surat Asar before we get into the tafsir of the surah itself, from an overview, even from the point of view of a non-Muslim. We'll look at some of the lessons and the logical cohesion of the surah from the point of view of a non-Muslim. Whenever you are brought a problem, a dispute, some issue in life, any decent human being, what is the first thing they will do? The first thing they will do, no matter what dispute is brought to them, is they would demand and they would make efforts to get to the facts of the case. The first thing is to get the facts right, to get to the truth itself. You wouldn't just take it at face value, you would explore it. And the more serious the problem, the more serious your inquiry into getting to the truth. You would have to exhaust yourself in getting to the facts of the matter. Okay, this is the very least requirement of not a believer but of decency. A decent human being, a decent judge, they would have to. For example, there's a dispute in your family. There's a couple of members of your family that are fighting, and they brought the issue to you. Indecently, what you would do is you don't like one of your cousins, you like the other one, so you pass judgment against the one you don't like. But what does judgment or justice or decency require? That you look at the facts of the case. Okay. Now that you discover the truth, it's not enough that you found the truth, you have to now stand by that truth. You have to make a judgment, you have to take action in accordance with the truth that you found. It is possible that you find the truth, and when you find it, you don't like what you found. And when you don't like what you found, your actions don't represent your findings. So what you believe to be true isn't being reflected in your actions. What do we call that? Hypocrisy. That's nifaq, that's hypocrisy. But if you find something to be true, then it is part of human decency to stick to it, live by it, execute it, implement it, and that is the next necessary consequence. Now, that's one thing that you internalized it for yourself. That this is injustice and I'm not going to do it. I've discovered that this is a wrong act, I will not commit it. I will discover that this is what I must do and I will do it. Now when you see other people doing wrong, then the society in which we live, we have the MYOB policy, mind your own business policy, right? This is not the policy of the prophets. This is not the policy of the believers. In other words, if the prophets were to mind their own business, then salah and dhikr of Allah would be it. That would be it. You have Surat Al-Muzammil, the messenger is being told, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا نِصْفَهُ أَوْ انْقُصْ مِنْهُ قَلِيلًا أَوْ زِدْ عَلَيْهِ وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. Recite the Qur'an. Remember Allah. That's for himself. But then there's another surah, right? There's Muzammil and what else? يَا أَيُّهَا الْمُدَّثِّرْ قُمْ فَأَنذِرْ وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ. Go rise and warn. Warn who? Others. Tell them what you're doing is wrong. Now if you find something to be wrong, and when you see a wrong happening, it is human decency to say that you should at least speak out against it. And say, you guys shouldn't do that. Now let me give you a real life scenario. You know that other people's property should not be damaged. Right? People have the right that their property should be respected. You're walking down the street and a couple of kids are playing baseball in the street and they're hitting the ball really hard and it's hitting other people's cars. Right? Now you know the truth already. The truth is they shouldn't be doing that. You wouldn't do that yourself, so you've done a good thing for yourself. You're not a criminal, fine. But is that enough? Is that enough that you just walk by and the thought comes to your mind, maybe I should tell these guys this isn't a good thing. Maybe I should tell them they don't have a right to do that to other people. Maybe I should stand up for justice. But when you want to stand up for justice,